Welcome to the last part of the video series on motivation. Today we'll be covering Auchi's Theory Z. We have seen in the earlier parts what motivation is, what are the process and content theories, what are the solutions these researchers over a period of around 60-70 years have given their leaders and managers. These are shortcuts that you can apply in any situation where you require to motivate your employees, because you as a manager, you as a particular individual will require the concept of motivation throughout your life. You'll have to motivate not just people in the industry, not just your juniors, you'll also have to motivate your family members, you'll have to motivate your children. So these concepts you can directly use inside of the company and even outside of the company. Now we'll be discussing a very important theory, that is Auchi's Theory Z. We have seen in the last particular video, part 7 of the particular video series, part 6 of the video series, Theory X and Theory Y. Basis of that particular theory, William Auchi's delivered this particular Theory Z. He said this was a theory that was given in the 1980s. It was basically a paper written by Auchi on how American companies can meet the Japanese challenge. Now, Japan had become a very big concern for the US markets. What was actually happening was the Americans had been manufacturing cars since the 1910 onwards. Now, Japan was ravaged. All of you know, Japan was ravaged by the nuclear bomb attacks in 1945 by America. 1945, Japan was nothing. A small group of islands reduced to nothing because of the nuclear bomb attacks. But in the 1980s, suddenly things started changing. They worked really hard, Japan worked really hard, and they started seeing immense amount of growth. Japanese cars like Toyota were totally killing the US car market. And that was a real surprise for all the managers who were sitting in US. They wanted to understand what is it that Japan is doing that America is not able to do. So William Auchi went on to study the Japanese companies, and he gave a particular paper by the name Theory Z, how American companies can meet the Japanese challenge. So just to kill this Japanese challenge, they studied the entire Japanese culture and what exactly was the secret sort of source of Japan, and that is the entire crux of Auchi's Theory Z. Auchi's Theory Z represents the adoption of Japanese management practices, that is group decision making, social cohesion, job security, holistic concern for employees by the American companies. Now in India, Maruti Suzuki, Hero Honda, etc. apply the postulates of Theory Z. 1980s onwards, this particular theory was, has been started getting implemented inside of companies. Now, what are the key differences between America and Japan? On the left-hand side are the concepts that are available in America, and the right-hand side are the concepts which are available in Japan. And let me tell you, right-hand side concepts are better because that has given Japan the amount of growth that it has received. In spite of being ravaged by the war, in spite of being reduced to nothing, they have grown to great numbers because of these concepts which are given on the right hand side. We'll be just discussing them one by one. In America, you find the employment is short term. People keep on jumping from one job to the other, whereas in Japan, they used to find that a particular person, if he enters into a particular company at the age of 20, he will retire by the age of 60 from the same company. He will not keep on jumping from one company to the other, and because of this he has a great loyalty, and he keeps on working for the company for a longer time and giving his 100%. This is the key difference that made Japanese companies succeed. Second one, in the American culture, you will find that individual decision is being made by the managers. The people who are sitting in the company, in the organizational hierarchy at the top, they make the entire decision. Whereas in Japanese companies, it's a group decision. There is a group, there is a board that sits, and they keep on taking the feedback from the employees also. Even the employees can give their suggestions, and their suggestions will be implemented. And that made Japanese companies grow in such great numbers. In American culture, the third point, we have an individual responsibility. The individual is responsible only for himself. Whereas in Japanese companies, you find that people are collectively responsible for their jobs. If somebody has made an error, the entire team suffers because of it. They have a collective group mentality, and because of that collective group mentality, everybody keeps on supporting the other. When you support each other, 1 plus 1 does not become 2, it becomes 11. And that is the benefit that Japanese companies had over management theory, had over American culture. Now the Fourth one is specialization. While American companies focused on specialization, they had some people who were exceptional in one particular job profile only. Japanese companies have the concept of generalization. Every person can do everything. They have been taught each and every activity, and they can easily replace a particular person if he's absent, if he's not reporting to work. So that helps the Japanese companies to reduce the workforce and to probably have a holistic view of the organization. If the marketing team of your company does not understand the pains of the finance team of your company, things will not move. They will not be reporting in a proper way. There will be a lack of communication between these two departments, which can be detrimental. Whereas in Japanese culture, everybody takes things as a collective responsibility. In American culture, you'll find there are quick promotions. Every year you have promotions. You can have promotions 2 times in a year. But in Japan, you'll find there are delayed promotions. Promotions are going to happen only after 3 years, 5 years, or there is a set pattern. After years of work, you'll be getting promoted, and that is good for Japanese culture, and that is giving them good amount of growth, because nobody is chasing numbers in that case. Nobody is chasing salaries, and they are more concerned about the holistic development, the comprehensive development of the organization. They're not just self-centered, concerned about themselves. Now, in American culture, you'll find there is external monitoring, whereas in the Japanese culture, you'll find that they have internal monitoring mechanism. In American culture, you have audit teams, you have the CEO, you have the board of directors, you have the shareholders who question the acts and activities of the company. Whereas inside of Japan, most of the employees are monitoring themselves, and they are doing the rightful things without somebody looking them as a watchdog. So that is a very big difference, and that keeps the Japanese companies on the top. In the American culture, we have work only for the managers have only concern about the work about of their particular employees. They have the relationship that is a work only relationship with their employees. A worker and his junior will just share the work. Whereas in Japanese culture, in the Japanese company, you will find that people are concerned, the managers are concerned not just about your work, they are also concerned about what is going on in your life. So they have a personal touch to their employees, and that helps them achieve greater numbers. In the American companies, the last point, they have a formal structure, more of a formalistic structure. There is no open door policy, whereas in Japan, there is an informal structure that is at play. People can easily mix. The CEO of the company will have a cup of tea with the normal workers on the shop floor, whereas in American culture, you will not find these things happening. So these were some of the key differences, and many of the differences, when they were adopted, when the Japanese concept of management was adopted, many of the companies started seeing great amount of results. And most of the companies you will find in today's date are adopting the theory Z concept of motivation. Now, moving on to what are the problems with all these motivation theories. We have discussed around 7 to 8 motivation theories. The problem with all these motivation theories is, in spite of they giving various kinds of prescription, you will find that still money is the biggest motivator. At least in India, if you have to create any kind of a motivation plan for your employees, you have to ensure that you give them a hefty bonus at the year end. You have to ensure that you keep on shutting their mouth with good amount of salary raise, perk highs, and all those things. So money is the biggest motivator still. So you have to keep on coming up with the new concepts, and that is a very big problem with motivation theories. Now, also, most of these motivation theories are Western in nature. Most of these theories, which have been propounded by great amount of researchers and researches being done, have been conducted in the United States of America. They have been conducted in Britain and in Europe. So these kind of theories have not been tested over here. In India, the situations are different. The expectation of the employees are different, and basis of the expectation, the needs of the individuals, the workers, are different. So you cannot be putting the US theories in India. It will not always be true. So that is the biggest problem. And the third problem is that because of money, various kinds of initiatives being coming up, there are new concepts like employee engagement which are taking over motivation. Now, motivation was a key concept in the 1960s. In the 1970s, motivation was a very good amount of key concept, but now employee engagement and other concepts are taking charge of it, and they are replacing the concept of motivation. The companies do not talk of motivation, they talk of employee engagement now, which is a better metric to follow and which gives them better results. So employee engagement and other concepts like this are also killing the concepts of motivation that were earlier being discussed. Now you have to ensure, as a good manager, you have to ensure that you know the secrets. Small success, celebrate the small successes, clap for your employees, give them a pat on the back. Keep on ensuring, as a good manager, that you have a two-way communication. You keep your communication gates open. You keep a follow an open door policy. Listen to whatever they have to say. Listen to their feedback. You can have concepts like employee of the month. You have to ensure that you participate, take their participation. You have a democratic setup. You ask for their opinions, whether you follow that or not. Try to follow most of the opinions, but try to get the opinions in the first place. Most of the managers do the only lip service to this particular thing. They just take the ideas and they never implement them. But if you start implementing, you keep on doing these small tips and bits here and there, you will become a good manager. And also you have to ensure that you gamify the entire thing. People get bored coming to the office and doing the same job again and again. Is a very boring stuff. So you have to cheer up them with various kinds of games, with various kinds of concepts, with games and contests. And also you have to incentivize for a good number of particular achievement made. You have to incentivize them. You have to give them some kind of a gift, or some kind of a appreciation, or some kind of a recognition. These small secrets, these small tips and tricks here and there will keep your motivation game up as a manager, and you'll become a good manager. You'll be counted as a good manager. And before ending, I wanted to give in two quotes. Good management consists in showing average people how to do the work of a superior people. You have to ensure that you have to make your average people superior. That is the concept of motivation. If you have the right motivation policy, if you have been studying proper motivation, you can make your average people inside the company work like the superior people. This is what John D. Rockefeller said. That is good management for you. If you can become a good manager in that sense, you can improve the performance of your company to a great extent. You will convert your average employees into superior people. And last but not the least, the quote from the one of the best leaders in the industry, the best leaders the world has ever seen in terms of General Electric CEO Jack Welch. He says, "No company, large or small, can succeed over the long run without energized employees who believe in the mission and understand how to achieve it." So Jack Welch says, no company in the world, small or big, can succeed without energized employees. Without motivated employees, no company in the world can succeed. And it's only when the employees are energized and they are motivated, they are charged up, they will be willing to do whatever you want to do. Imagine the movie Bahubali. On one roar of Bahubali, the entire army of his 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 Sipahis used to run behind him and get the targets achieved, kill the particular enemy. So that is the amount of power that motivation as a concept has. So I hope you have enjoyed the video series, and if you have liked it, please do subscribe to our channel, and also keep on referring these videos to somebody whom you think will require these lessons, and so that he can improve his managerial game or leadership game. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting.